Hello, I'm Mio and welcome to this video where I'll be making more mushroom jars. This is the first one that I made and it is quite big. And I had some more clay and I had these two tiny little jars that I thought would look really good as tiny little mushrooms. So that is what I'm going to be making. I am doing the same exact technique that I did last time where I start by trying to spread this clay. This one was for some reason harder to work with and it kept sticking to the paper. So I try to just flatten it with my hand and then measuring how tall the jar is so that I can cut the exact size to roll around the little jar. I wanted to make more of these mushroom jars because I really liked the first one and I also had some other ideas of how I want to make them. So these are going to be two new kinds of mushrooms. One of them I want to be the typical red mushroom with white spots, and then the other one I want to be a little bit darker with more blacks and browns in it. So a tad darker and maybe taller than the one that I made last time. I'm going to be using a lot of the same techniques that I used last time because they worked really well for me, such as the wrapping around method and then try to smooth things out with this little stick thing. And the windows and doors are gonna be quite similar because I really like them on the original. But who knows, maybe I will make some more because I still have some clay left and switch it up and make something completely different. But we'll see. Here I'm wrapping around the second jar, cutting that up, and then I just do the exact same thing where I get it to smooth out. Then I add some clay to the bottom in quite a messy way, and this I also do with both of the jars, and I'm pretty sure that I did this same technique with the original jar where I just try to smooth it out, but this time I try to make it a little bit thinner than the last one, so I am kind of taking away a lot of the clay and adding it to the other one. I do this in hopes that the jar will stand a little bit more stable. That's also why I'm going to be trying to make the mushrooms not as top heavy and maybe adding a little bit more aluminum foil than I did with the previous one. The other one is quite stable because of the bigger jar, but these are so small that I don't want to risk it. So here I start with the aluminum foil, and I probably could have taped it or glued it or something, but I did not. For the first one I don't use that much aluminum foil because it's gonna be a very flat mushroom. This is the one that is gonna be red, by the way. So I am kind of just trying to wrap it around, and I'm also trying to secure it to the lid properly so it doesn't fall off. And then here, after I formed it, I made little 3D dots that I'm going to be painting white in the end because I wanted it to look a little bit more 3D and a little bit more real, and also just to have some details on it because the previous one had very little details and the other one that I'm going to be making is also only going to have painted details and nothing in 3D on top. So yeah, here I want to experiment with that and hope that it will look good. For the second lid, I add a lot more aluminum foil because this mushroom is supposed to be taller. So I want it to be a little bit more round. It doesn't go out as much, but it is pointed more upwards. I pretty quickly realized when trying the lid on that this idea of making it really tall and not point outwards as much just looked really weird and it didn't really look like a mushroom. So I had to add a little bit more clay around the sides to make it look a little bit more mushroomy. Here I'm testing out the red mushroom and realizing that the lid is a little bit, or the bottom of the mushroom is a little bit too big, so I had to fix that. And then I added the little lines for underneath the mushroom, which I really like. I made them really quickly and I didn't try to smooth them out as much as I did with the last mushroom that I made in a previous video, and that is because it was just way too time consuming and did very little for the mushroom. So I do the same thing with the other mushroom, the taller one, and just add some quick lines to the border, and then I am done with it. Here it is time to add the details. So I start with the window, and I start by kind of just drawing out where it's supposed to be. Then I use this tool to make little dots so that it's easier for me to kind of rip it out. I also use my nails a little bit because it just works a lot quicker. Then I gotta smooth out the edges of it, and then I am going to be adding a little border very soon. So to add the border I have to roll out this little hot dog of a line before trying to just wrap it around. And then I use a tool to make the edges blend in with the sides so that it looks a lot more realistic, and also to get this little hot dog to stick to the rest of the clay. Here I add another little hot dog that I have to stick to the clay as well with the same technique. So I kind of hit it a little bit, smooth it out, and then I use the stick to put the sides down like I did previously. And then I have to do the same with the inside. So I have to kind of mix it all up and kind of blend it in so it looks a little bit more natural. And yeah, it's also quite a satisfying process, but my hand is always in the way. I'm terrible at recording these videos because I keep having my hand or everything out of frame because I get too into the process. Anyway, here I'm adding these little lines so that it looks like wood, or a little bit more homemade, you know, like they're little sticks of wood that they just glued to make a frame. And then it is time for the door, and that is just the exact same technique, just bigger, so a lot more easy for me to make a big hot dog. Then I kind of use my fingers to get it to stick a little bit before going in with my tool, and then starting by flattening out a little bit before using the tool to get the edges to stick to the previous form. Then here is time for the pattern, which is probably my favorite part of the process, or at least one of my favorites, because I think it's just really satisfying to get that wooden texture in there. And this one worked a lot better than with the previous mushroom that I made, because here the clay is actually workable. It is a bit newer, so yeah, it goes really smoothly and it looks really good in my opinion. And then after I did that, I do the framework on the around the door, which is just the same as with window, where I try to make it look like little pieces of wood glued together. Then here I'm going in with the other one, and it's the exact same process, so I don't show much of it. I sketch out first, then I rip out the windows, fix the edges, make hot dog, put hot dog around window, and you know, the same stuff that we have been seeing. But for this one I thought, oh, maybe I should do something different, because I have been doing the same process for like 3 mushrooms now. So I decided to add this little thing, or you know, the little X in the window, which I didn't like, so I took it out. So that was, yeah, just wanted to show you that I am trying new stuff. So here we are moving away from the sculpting process and into the painting process. And I start by darkening these lines that are underneath the mushroom hat, or the top of the mushroom, I don't really know what it's called, with some brown paint. And then I paint the doors. I also see that I've already painted the mushroom itself in just this base color that is really, really close to the white color that is already on there. Anyway, that door gets this nice brown color, as well as the frames around both the windows and the doors. And then I am planning to dry brush a different shade on top of that so that the door looks different from the windows. So here I am dry brushing with a little bit more yellowish tone to the brown color, and then I add a little bit more whitish tone on top of that as well. Do that a couple of times until it looks decent, or how I want it to look. I even add some extra highlights here and there. And here are the doors. There are 2 different types of doors. I think on one of the mushrooms the colors look a tiny bit too similar, but the reason for that was that this is the darker mushroom and I want things to look just dark in general on that mushroom. And then here it is time to paint the top of the mushrooms. The first one is going to be the darker one, and I start with this brown coat, and then after the brown color I add black on top, and then I kind of try to messily paint it over, because I do not want to cover the whole brown color, but I do want it to look kind of weathered and old in a way. So I do that, and when I'm done with that, it is time for the red mushroom. This one was really fun to make, and I have this really nice opaque red acrylic paint that I just love painting with. And for the edges, I add a little bit of a yellow color just to get a tiny bit of a variation and a little bit of an ombre effect to make it look a bit more lively and just better in general. After that, it is time to paint the white dots, which is the last part of the process. And a lot of the dots kind of got smooshed, so they are not looking as good as they did when I sculpted them, but that's fine, they still look kind of good. And then I also added some other ones just for good measure, and then that is it. Here is the final look at both of the tiny mushroom jars. I really like them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.